video, I'm going to talk about gerunds. If you've heard about gerunds before, you might have heard of them in talking about infinitives also. Infinitives and gerunds are kind of like cousins, but we're not going to talk about the whole family today. We're just going to focus on gerunds. I'll talk a little bit about infinitives, but not much. So what is a gerund? Well, a gerund is a present participle. Now, let's make sure you know what a present participle is. A present participle is a verb with ing. You might be saying, well, isn't that a progressive verb? Hold on. A present participle is the large category of anything that is a verb with the ing, and there are a number of different possibilities of what a present participle can do. A present participle can be a verb. It can also be an adjective. It can also be a noun. And if it's a noun, that is a gerund. So a verb with ing, doing, going, being, having, running, that functions as a noun. So if it functions as a noun, that basically means that it is a subject or an object in a sentence. If it's an object in a sentence, it may be a direct object, which is just the object of the verb, or it may be the object of a preposition. Prepositions are those small words that show relationships between things: in, on, at, for, from, to, by, with. About is one that we're going to look at here. Those are prepositions. When you have a preposition in English, you need to have a noun after it. And that's where the gerund comes in. Because if you want to use a verb idea after a preposition, you need it to be a noun. It needs to be a noun after a preposition. Those go together. Preposition, noun. That's a prepositional phrase. So we'll take a look at some examples of this. So a gerund could be a subject. It could be a direct object. It could be the object of a preposition. It is a verb with ing. Let's look at some examples. I'm thinking about getting a new computer, but I dislike dealing with technology. It can be so frustrating. How many present participles do you see? Take a look. Your answer is 4. That's correct. Where are they? Okay, we have this one right here, thinking, and then we have this one, getting, and dealing, and frustrating. These 4 are present participles. They're verbs with ing. Are all of them gerunds? Not necessarily. You have to look and find out if it is functioning as a noun. If it's not functioning as a noun, it's not a gerund. Okay, so the first one, I'm thinking, what is this? Is this a noun? No, it's a verb. Here's the verb. The verb is am thinking. This is the present progressive, present continuous verb tense. So this is not a gerund. This is a present progressive verb. I'm thinking about getting. Well, what is this one? What comes before it? The word before it is about, and about is a preposition. Ding, 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 ding. That means that this is a gerund because you have a preposition here, then you have a noun after it, which, if you want to use a verb idea, will be a gerund. Okay, so I'm thinking about getting a new computer, but I dislike dealing with technology. So in this sentence, here's the verb, dislike, the subject, I dislike what? The answer to that question is the direct object. When you're looking for a direct object, you ask the question, subject, verb, what? I dislike what? And the answer is dealing. So this is a direct object. And if it is a direct object, that means it is a gerund. It can be so frustrating. What about frustrating? Now, frustrating is a word that is describing the situation. It is referring to the situation, and frustrating is describing it. What kind of a word describes a noun? That would be an adjective. So this right here is an adjective. This one here is a verb. So how many gerunds do we have? 2. Right here and right here. Because this one is the object of a preposition. This one is a direct object. This is not a gerund. This is not a gerund. All of them are present participles. Okay, let's look at another one. Being the president involves being criticized a lot. Tonight, our president will talk about having raised taxes. How many present participles do you see? Okay, your answer should be 3. Yes, okay, where are they? Right here, and right here. Okay, this one is at the very beginning of a sentence. That should immediately give you a clue that it is probably a subject. Not always, but probably. Let's look for the verb. Where's the verb? The verb is right here, involves. So then you ask, who or what involves? And the answer to that is your subject. Always look for the verb first. Then find the subject of the verb. So our subject is here. Being the president involves. Then you can look for the direct object. Being the president involves what? Being criticized a lot. This is the direct object. So, is it a gerund? You bet. Sure. It's a gerund. Gerunds are direct objects. This one is a little bit special because it is a combination of be plus a past participle. Have you studied this combination before? The be verb plus a past participle. What is this in English? This is the passive, not the past, but the passive. So, passive is used when you want to say that something is receiving an action, not doing it, but receiving it. So let's take a look at this. Being the president involves being criticized a lot. That means that the president is receiving the criticism. If you didn't have the be plus past participle, it would have a totally different meaning. If you said being the president involves criticizing, that's the active gerund. That means that the president is criticizing a lot. Well, that may be true for certain presidents, but that's not what this sentence is communicating. sentence is communicating a general truth that being a president involves receiving criticism, not doing it, but receiving it. So we need to have the passive form. When you want to have the passive form, use being plus a past participle. Okay, and that is the passive form. Tonight, our president will talk about having raised taxes. What comes before having? Preposition. That tells you that this is a gerund. Okay, there's something special about this one also. We have another auxiliary verb, but it's not be. It's the verb have, having, plus a past participle. If you use the auxiliary verb having plus a past participle, what is this? This is a way of making something past. So this is a past gerund. So we should put gerund here. So this is a passive gerund, which means that you're receiving it. And that uses the verb being plus a past participle. This is the past gerund. It uses the verb having plus a past participle. What does this mean? This means that the president will talk about something he already did. He will talk about having raised taxes. If you don't do this and you do a regular gerund, has a totally different meaning. If you say tonight our president will talk about raising taxes, that is a present or future action of raising taxes. That's not what this communicates. This communicates that he or she already raised taxes. Okay? So those are the two other little forms to know about. So what have you learned? You've learned that you should use gerunds for subjects, for objects of prepositions, and for objects, direct objects, of certain verbs. What do I mean, certain verbs? Well, a verb like dislike is part of a group of verbs that has a gerund after it. There's a whole group of verbs in English that takes a gerund. It means it has a gerund come after it. And then there is another group of verbs in English that takes an infinitive. It needs to have an infinitive after it. How do you know which is which? You have to memorize. Do it bit by bit. Use flashcards. Learn them. There's no other way. You need to know that dislike always has a gerund after it. You can't say, I dislike to deal. You can't say, I dislike deal. You have to say, I dislike dealing. Okay. Let's take a look at this example right down here. There are a number of problems you need to fix. I want you to pause your video right now, look at it, fix the mistakes, and then hit again so I can tell you the answers. Did you pause it? Okay. I expect you have paused it and spent time looking. So, what are the problems here? So, for the first one, have you thought about take a computer class? You should be aware now. We talked about and about. About is a preposition. What comes after a preposition? Okay, you can't say take. You have to say taking. Have you thought about taking a computer class? There's no other good form here. This is why you need to know how to use gerunds. Okay, yes, but I don't want to pay too much money. All right, this verb right here, pay, comes after want. Is want one of the verbs that takes a gerund as a direct object? No. It takes an infinitive, right? You learned that a long time ago, probably. I don't want to pay too much money. Okay, so don't think that just because it's a direct object, it's always a gerund. No, no, no. Certain verbs, not every. You need to learn which ones take infinitives and which ones take gerunds. Want takes infinitives. Okay, I don't want to pay too much money. What about the adult school? Here we have about, again, boy, about is very popular today. Do we need to have a gerund after it? You can have a regular noun. Regular nouns are good for subjects or objects. It's just that if you want a verb idea, you need to have a gerund form. Okay? So what about the adult school? To take classes there is not so expensive. What do we have here? We have an infinitive as a subject. Now, you might have learned that infinitives are good as subjects, but let me tell you, in modern English, really, you will not use infinitives as subjects. Infinitives are only used as subjects in a very literary way, very formal language, very poetic. Don't do it. Use a gerund if it's a subject. So instead of to take classes, you need the gerund. Taking classes there is not so expensive. I really enjoy, I take a cooking class there. Enjoy. Enjoy is one of the verbs that you will memorize or have memorized that takes a gerund as a direct object. So instead of saying I take, we need the gerund. No I, just the gerund. I really enjoy taking a cooking class there. Is this a gerund? No, it's describing class. It's an adjective. This is why you need to know about gerunds. You need to use the correct forms in a subject or object position. So use your gerunds wisely.